Hello and welcome to the Omnex webinar, FEMA, FMEDA, and FTA using multipoint FEMAs with collaborative software platform. Today's presenters are Chad Keimel, Omnex CTO, and Nikhil Unakrishnan, an Omnex consultant. Chad Keimel is the CTO and founder of Omnex, an international consulting organization headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Chad has developed and teaches both many auditor training courses, including ISO 9001, 14001, 45001, integrated management systems, automotive SPICE, and many more. Chad is a certified lead auditor for IATF 16949, 14001, 9001, and many more. He's also an Intact certified assessor for automotive SPICE. Over the course of Chad's successful career, he's served on the Malcolm Baldrige Board of Examiners and received numerous quality achievement awards, including the Quality Professional of the Year Award from the American Society for Quality. During this webinar, if you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A box, which is located in the Zoom webinar panel. And Chad will get into the best of his ability after the webinar. During this webinar, there are multiple polls we will be conducting. I think there's approximately 4. So please be aware of your screen and watch out for the polls to pop up. When they pop up, please answer them as soon as possible and we will move on with the webinar. Again, if you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A box and Chad will get to them at the end of the webinar. All right, Chad, you can take it away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FEMA, FMEDA, and FTA using multipoint FMEAs. Along the way, we'll share with you actually 2 different modules of our collaborative software platform, what we call the EVAV platform, and also we'll show you the DFMEA tool with the built-in FMEDA and FTA, which I'll be sharing with you. The very first time I presented this, almost, last year at some point, we did not have software, and I'm very happy to announce that, well, I'll say that in the very end, okay? So let's get going here. What we do find is about half the audience is new to us. So let me do a brief introduction to Omnex. We are a 35-year-old company, a global company, operating worldwide. And some of the great pride we take in Omnex is being the writers of many of the standards we work with today. In fact, we're both on the ISO 26262 committees, sort of committees, and our 3 of our subject matter experts helped write the AIAG core tools from both the FMEA, SPC, MSA, APQP, and PPAP software standards. So let's get going here. This tells you where we have our global offices. How we grew to this size and worldwide is we helped Ford Motor Company with what is called the emerging market strategy in the 1990s. And then we also helped the semiconductor industry with their as they call the subcons, and helped, really, ensured that we expanded in Asia Pacific. 6 target markets for Omnex. You can see here that we show both the automotive and a electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle. So maybe, Miles, are you there?
Yes, sir.
How is the, I'm seeing a little lag in the internet. Are you able to hear me okay?
I'm able to hear you okay. Your video's a little choppy, so I would maybe turn your webcam off.
Let's do that. Bear with me. I see it sort of spinning here, and now it's not behaving. There it is. Just going to do that for a second. I think you're not even seeing my screen at this point, am I right?
I can see your screen. You're on the 6 target market screen.
I've sort of lost Zoom. I apologize, folks. Sometimes everything doesn't work the way we want it to. Let me just make sure I am signed on. Of course, I signed on to the wrong one. You're not able to see my screen at this point, right?
Correct.
Okay. I have no idea how that happened. I saw it. So I saw a problem. Forcing me to fill everything in. I'm not quite sure why. Bear with me, folks. We'll be out of the woods here in a second. Miles, I am having difficulty joining in.
Well, hey, Chad, your audio is working great for me, so you want me to just run the slides? Can you see the
Why
slides?
don't you run the slides, and I'll tell you when to go on, okay? I am right now in slide 6. The one problem you'll have is I have some videos I wanted to show.
Can you see my slides?
No, I would not be able to, right? if you can send me some sort of a link which is not forcing me to answer, fill everything in, would help a lot. All right, it's joined me finally. I'll join with video and I will turn it off, okay? Miles, what? Okay.
Do you want to try to share your slides, or you want me to run it?
I think I'm in now. All right, folks. Hopefully I've not lost many of you and gave you all time to join in. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
All right. Folks, I typically don't sweat a lot when I do these webinars, but let's continue. So I was explaining how we are in 6 target markets, and you see here automotive. And a couple of years ago, we realized the entire industry was going electric and then autonomous. Folks, if you don't know that now, you should know that now. I'm not going to explain all the reasons why, but just definitely the whole, China deciding in 2035 and then GM deciding in 2035 they're going to be carbon neutral and completely electric is one of the big forces. All right. With that said, just a little bit about me. I've been in the automotive industry and I've been working, well, we've been now done a lot of work in semiconductors. I may have mentioned to you, I helped write the semiconductor supplement and very involved in many different committees writing standards. With that, let's get to the agenda. So here's what we're going to do. We'll talk about the 26262 safety analysis, because the 26262 functional safety analysis for functional safety is what's driving this need for FMEDA and FTA. I'll explain that. Then talk about the DFMEA and the new DFMEA is needed today and how that helps in coming up with the FMEDA and the FTA. Then we'll talk about the linked FMEDA and linked FTA, and then we'll go to the summary. Let's check here. All right. I'm afraid to turn on my, so first question, Miles, if you can ask the first question, I'd like to know, what your, why you're here so I can fine tune the delivery to help you, okay? This should be fairly easy to click. Let's not wait too long, Miles. We're going to do fine though. Folks, this topic of the DFMEA, FMEDA, and FTA, actually I'm presenting next week at one of the more prestigious reliability conferences. And okay, but half of you are interested in the linkages between the two. I see almost about the same interest in DFMEA, FMEDA, less for the FTA. Okay, thank you very much. So let's move on. And let's take so we'll start here with the idea of why we're here, and we're here because of 26262. Of course, folks, if you talk to folks in the automotive industry, they'll tell you they've been doing DFMEAs and fault trees forever. But none of our standards required fault tree analysis, but here comes functional safety. I think this is quite an old standard. I won't try to, we started implementing it in 2009. Standard came out in 2011, went through a revision in 2018, and people are still learning the standard only because it's about 1,000 pages. I counted it was not exactly 1,000 pages, but pretty darn large and huge, and making very complicated to understand if somebody doesn't walk you through it. So what can we say here? There's 12 parts actually. I think this is the latest one. So 11 parts, and you can see that the system level itself has a V running through hardware and software, and then small V's both for hardware and software. What's interesting to us is just that the requirements between the system, hardware, and software are linked, okay? The standard calls it allocation. But really, what's more interesting to us is that the safety analysis being asked for in a couple of different places. At a system level, you need to do it at a product level, and they say both inductive and deductive, which is DFMEA and FTA. In the software area, they leave it up to you, but Omnex says, let's use a DFMEA, okay? So pretty much we can say what's on the left-hand side is what we call the 4th edition DFMEA, and then we have the fault tree analysis here, and how do these two link together? All right, that's the key question. That's the problem we have solved. But let me tell you, it's a little bit more than that. I'll tell you how we came upon this problem that needed to be solved. But before I go there, let me just say, not only do you have to do a DFMEA and the FTA, we also need to cover, forget the software metrics right now, we have this hardware metrics we have to do in the 3 different hardware metrics. One is called a single point fault, second is a multi-point fault, and then there's a probabilistic metric, the fit rate, okay? Failure in time. So this is being calculated, and a lot of people use a FEMEDA for it, okay? So a single point fault, a latent point fault, which is a multi-point fault, and probabilistic. So here we are, been working in functional safety for the longest time, doing our assessments, and we do these assessments, we find out that the DFMEA and fault tree analysis just don't correlate. And then we see the FEMEDA, a third one that doesn't correlate. In fact, the FEMEDA and the FTA needs to be coming up with the same answers because both of them solve the single point fault, multi-point fault metric and giving different answers. And so we asked the question, why? And the answer was really that the DFMEAs we have today is only a single point fault, okay, which is a cause. There's a single cause. When you look at the failure, it is by a single cause. And what multi-point fault means is it's caused by A and B. So when A and B, A cannot cause it by itself and B cannot cause it by itself. When A and B come together, this failure happens. So that's the difference. That's why the single point fault and the multi-point fault don't agree. I mean, sorry, the DFMEA and the FEMEDA and the FTA don't relate to each other, of course. So what we did at Omnex, but let's say maybe 2.5 years ago, our group, I mentioned to you maybe that we had 3 of the writers of the core tools. We put our heads together and we asked the question what to do, and we created from there a DFMEA, which is both single point fault and multi-point fault. All right, I'll explain a little bit more before I say anything else. One of the things we also had to bring in was this idea of safety mechanisms. Safety mechanisms detect faults or control failures, nothing more than preventive techniques. And so we brought in the safety mechanisms into the multi-point fault. So here's the flow. Here's the HARA. The HARA is nothing but the function's malfunction, okay? The safety goal is just a statement of this malfunction, and the safety goal populates the DFMEA, all right? From there, the safety goal is allocated into the technical safety concept, which is system requirements, and then it's broken down into hardware requirements and software requirements. And hence, we call this a flow down at Omnex. Now, of course, this is also called structure in the AIAG-VDA DFMEA, okay? But as you all know, the BOM or the structure, you could have a system, could have a subsystem, and even at a battery pack, it's more complicated. In fact, I have an example, so let me wait. So let's move on. Let me ask you this question also. I asked you a question earlier. Do you work in the functional safety area? Yes or no? If no, do you work with one of the tools in this webinar? Maybe I've asked you this again before, but I'd like to know people to tell me, just want to know how many people we have that deal with functional safety. I feel like showing myself. I'll turn it off because I'm afraid it's more interesting. So you can see here, I don't usually sweat, but the little bit of lateness caused a little anxiety. Okay, do you work about a 50-50? Yeah, interesting. For the folks who are no, about half of you work with DFMEA, okay? So 27%, all of them, okay? So about, I'll say, 5, 7, 80% of you are who said no, about 50% said no, but 80% of that, 8, 5, 40, 40% of the audience is working with these tools and interested in coming with these tools. And I'm so happy you're all here because we are very anxious that the industry know about this and adopts this. Folks, I'll just say this. I'm the guy who came up with the linkages between process flow, FEMA, control plan, work instructions. And I started talking about it in the 1980s. 1988, our software actually came out that linked all of it together. And beating this drum, I used to feel so frustrated that the industry hadn't adopted it. It took almost to 1995, a good 17 years before the industry. I hope, folks, I'm not going to be alive that long for this one to really take off. So please take a look at this. Trust us, move forward. All right. Moving on then. So what did we say? We said fundamentally, because of the systems were mechanical, and mechanical systems have single point faults. I didn't say that, but now you know. Single point faults, our DFMEAs have been single point faults. Comes mechatronic systems have multi-point faults. So typically, there are faults, failures with A, B, and C, but typically there's such a low probability we don't even count it. So higher probability is a multi-point fault, and we have to take that into consideration, okay, for the goodness of our product. But because it's safety, we count it. We should be looking at it for any other reason also, even just for functional failures. All right. So DFMEA structure and functional analysis. Let me just say, the AIAG-VDA. Now, since we have 4th edition writers, and we have one AIAG-VDA writer who was also on the 4th edition. Our 4th edition writers say, oh, Chad, it was all along there, but really it took AIAG-VDA to say, you need to bring in the structure, and then you need to bring down the flow down of the functions and requirements between the system, the hardware, and the software. Don't worry about everything else. This is the main thing we're going to grab onto right now. So here is the idea of the structure. Well, this doesn't fully explain it. I have an example for a battery management system so you understand what is the structure. You've got to do the structure first. If you follow the Omnex method, you got to follow the structure, and then you have to flow down functions and requirements like this. Here's the battery pack breaking down into 4 modules that breaks down further in the BMS breaks down. So we're going to focus on the BMS. So in my examples, and I'm going to show you some examples, into BMS hardware, BMS software, and the BMS hardware breaks down into the relay, fuse, and et cetera, all right? So software is also important. We'll flow down. Once you have the structure, you need to flow down. I don't have a picture of the functions and requirements. Yes, I do. This is just saying that, hey, you need to have traceability. And of course, and you're actually looking at our software has traceability up and down. And well, so I did not have the flow down. I'll actually show you a video that shows the flow down between, just keep in mind, you're looking at this structure and you're looking at the requirements as they flow down, all right? And video seems to be working fine, I think. I'm going to continue with that. You can provide comments. I really appreciate all of you who gave me feedback when the system was not working well. I think you're able to keep up, and the internet is working fine right now, so I'll keep it on, all right? So here we have the structure. By the way, this backwards and forwards traceability is very important, not only in ISO 26262, but for ASPICE for all the requirements. So when you go to ASPICE, it's not just for safety functions and requirements, it's for all functions and requirements. So when I talk about the multi-point FMEA, it's for all the requirements that were flowing down. Soon as you do the structure and the flow down, automatically your DFMEA is populated, okay? Left-hand side of your DFMEA is filled out. And let me just take somebody says, oh, it keeps interrupting? Okay, I will turn this off. Thank you for letting me know. So we have the DFMEA, and not only the system, the battery management system, all the modules, by the way, the subsystems fill in, but we're focusing on the BMS. All of them, the left-hand side of the DFMEA is completed. Now you might be saying, what about AIAG-VDA? It's the same for the AIAG-VDA DFMEA, but I have more to say. Hold on. So when you're done with this linkage, you have a flow down from the safety goal into the DFMEA with both single and multi-point faults, and then going into the FTA, and this is supposed to be FEMEDA, all right? I keep editing this to put the FEMEDA on top. So, oops, maybe not there. Here, FEMEDA is here, all right? So the DFMEA, the FTA, and the FEMEDA is linked, and I'm going to explain that to you in the next chapter. Are we on time? We're doing okay on time. So first, though, we need to have a multi-point fault and single point fault, all right? And you need to have the safety mechanism. So once you put all that in, that needs to go into the FEMEDA and the FTA, right into the DFMEA. Once you populate the DFMEA, you get almost everything else. Well, not quite, but almost, okay? So what do you need to do? Number one, create the structure, create the flow down of functions and requirements. That's called function analysis. Again, function analysis in the AIAG-VDA is between two items. What we do is we do the flow down between the entire structure, okay? Otherwise, you're not going to get the fault tree analysis. And it incorporates single and multi-point faults, special characteristics, ACEs, incorporates safety mechanisms, and with the right dashboard, it provides you a chance to see. So what we mean by that, let me go back here. If you have a dashboard and it tells you what is your single point fault, latent point fault, and probabilistic metrics, you can go back and start playing with, what if I put a safety mechanism here? How does this change? And you can start playing with it, and you can also see the propagation of the fault and decide where you want to put the control, okay? That's what we mean by this last bullet. And what did we say? Creating an FMEA in this manner allows the team to create a FEMA in any format, all right? Soon as you create it, you can pull up the same information, whether in AIAG-VDA, DFMEA, or AIAG 4th edition. I'll show you that a little bit later. All right. I have a great question. I have a great interest in multi-point DFMEA, yes or no? Wanted a little bit of exchange between us, so I added some of these questions just to see how we're doing, okay? All right, I think that's enough time, Miles. Okay, good. A good 84% of you are interested, and makes me happy, all right? Because we're not here, I have to tell you, I remember the day I almost cried in front of my class because I was teaching the same thing as a young man in the 1980s. And, 15 years later, I'm almost 50 or something. Well, I'm a pretty old guy now. But, I was in my 50s and I said, I've been doing this for like 15 years, and I'm saying the same thing over and over, and I'm not getting takers. Nobody's changing. Culture's not changing. And it took and I guess we changed enough people that eventually it got right into IATF 16949. And even so now, when we go and look at registered companies, there's still no beautiful linkage because DFMEA is done in design groups and PFMEA is in the manufacturing plant. And the second thing the standard says is when you do a change management or a 8D, you have to come back and update these things. And there is no good software tool for that, though Omnex has a software tool for that. So nobody is really doing that well. All right, now that we have created this multi-point DFMEA following the rules, what rules? These rules, okay, which we call the Omnex method. Suddenly, this FEMEDA that's created with great difficulty, keep in mind, let's say this is hardware, you have to have the failures at the component level, and it pulls up into the FEMEDA, all right? Pulls up, either you can create it right here in the FEMEDA, or you can go create it in the component FMEAs, and it populates it. Our software, folks, does not create fit rates. You have to put in your fit rate estimates. Working with you, we want to put in the calculation so it automatically calculates it for you. And of course, the FTA, you put it in one place, it populates. You don't have to do all three tools. You can either fill out the DFMEA and the FTA, or you can do the FEMEDA and the DFMEA and the FTA comes along for free. It's filled out automatically, okay? Just like when you fill out a PFMEA, half of the process flow control plan fields are filled out. And when you fill out the PFMEA and the process flow, half the control plan is filled out, okay? But there's a more 100% fillage between some of these other tools. All right, so hardware metrics or single point and latent point faults in the FEMEDA are by safety goal. Keep that in mind. Failure modes, single and multi-point causes, and safety mechanisms are related to components that automatically populates when you fill out the component DFMEA. Fit rates are typically calculated from tables or electronic semiconductor components calculated from we have the standards, and the next few months we'll be trying to, automatically, as soon as you say you have this component, pulling in the fit rate. All right, so you fill it in and the FEMEDA automatically goes in. And once you do that, I'm going to skip the, just keep in mind though, the higher the ASIL, higher the single point fault target and the multi-point fault target. And when you get to ASIL D, why people don't want the ASIL D is because you may almost have to go into redundancy in your design, all right? What more can I say? Of course, you use decomposition, and you decompose the D, and you're, it's allowed. It's just mathematics, and that's the way you do it. But you have to make sure you have a DFA, independence. All right. Now we move on to the linked fault tree analysis. So just reminding you, what happens here in the FTA is that as soon as you come up with a system functions and requirements and the subsystem, in this case battery management system, and then the hardware and software, you actually have a propagating function and requirement. You don't, and by the single point or multi-point, you actually have the AND or the OR gates, so you automatically get your fault tree analysis, right? And the leaf level components populate the higher, is what's used in the FMEDA, okay? So what do we say here? The FTA can be populated directly from the interrelated DFMEAs. The AND or OR relationships, one second, can be added, but actually it's there. You don't have to add it. It's added because with a single point fault or multi-point fault, you get the AND or OR. And need to be consistent, the SPF, okay, consists with SPF and, hang on one second, my NPF designations on the FEMAs and FMEDAs. Fit rates can be taken from the FMEDA. The FTA will show you, I was going to go with this picture. So I'm going to talk about this picture, why this picture is there, and why it's important. All right. So what does the FTA do? Identify single and multi-point faults. It's the only one that actually calculates calculates the probabilistic metric of the safety goal, analyzes the interfaces and relationships to determine improvement opportunities. And the FTA, of course, is highly recommended as for ASIL C and D. And the FMEDA is a tool of choice people are using in the hardware area, okay? So, of course, what we do is we do all three of these, okay? And I'm going to pause for questions after this last slide. We don't quite have this picture in our software, but we do have the fault tree analysis. And you can look at the propagation, and you can pull up, one failure at a time or one safety goal at a time. Remember, this is for both safety and non-safety, and you can look at the propagation. I don't believe we have added the controls yet. So we could easily add, where are the controls? You could ask and query the system, and then decide where do you want to put your preventive measure, safety mechanism? Where do you want to put your control? Because it may be cheaper at a certain location versus a higher location, right? A lower location. And to prevent this failure from propagating up. All right. So, okay. And I see some questions already. Why don't I give you some chance to ask more questions? Okay. May pause here for 30 seconds. And we're quite on time. I usually do this with one or two others, and there's a little bit of lag in terms of as I pass the baton to somebody else to speak. What kind of questions do you have? This is a area, this is a new area, and hopefully considerable interest in doing something like this, right? Because it'll give you consistency and save you engineering time. All right. What I'm going to do now is actually show a little bit of the software. All right, all set up here, and maybe not. As I went away, I think I lost it. It went into the Omnex website. Okay. All right. right, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and I'll pull it up. Bear with me 1 second here. And I want to show you both the VDA DFMEA and the 4th edition DFMEA. Life is such that, all right, so one of the FME is pulled up. This might be actually the all right, so here is, and we're just sort of taking you, it's going to be about a little bit more than 4 minutes. And it shows you, this is our requirements management page. You bring in the stakeholder requirements on the left-hand side, not populated very well. And then you turn that into functions and requirements, and then you allocate it. All right, so let's start here with the top level requirements. And you can see here, this is I think you're looking at the battery pack. Yes, in fact, you're looking at the battery pack and you're looking at the allocation of the requirements. There's 2 ways to allocate it in our software. Okay, and also I didn't want to show all of functional safety, but you're looking at the safety goals. And now you're looking at the structure. I had to jump around a little bit, folks, to be able to show you everything. So when you click at the top 1, 2, 3, 4, you actually will see the battery pack go into the battery management system, battery module, mechanical enclosure, and then the BMS opens up to its parts. And this is the picture we took a snapshot of to show you. But also we are interested in the software. Okay, software also goes into modules and then to unit code. All right, now what we're showing you is a different way to look at these requirements. This is actually, we call this flow down. You can take any requirement from the battery pack and then click the arrow and open it up. And you'll see that function and requirement, maintained rated power output, it breaks into 4 functions in the battery management system. And if I click permit support battery charging, I find out it's a power balancing function in the hardware, and it's done by the EMC filter. Okay, there's a one-on-one relationship as it flows down. Now I'm going to look at this provide range of 320 miles, breaks into 3 different requirements, and I click collect and transmit battery performance data. It goes into software. Okay, that's how we do it in software. And it says gather battery performance data, and it breaks down into modules and then finally into unit code. All right. So just to say how this function analysis is by the entire structure rather than just by the, as soon as I do it, I can pull up the DFMEA, and I'm going to be pulling up the AIAG-VDA DFMEA, and that's for the battery pack. And really the takeaway we want from you is that once you have the necessary information, it doesn't matter what format you're using. And if you're more comfortable using one format, do it with that format. And today we have the SAE-J1739. 2 of our FMEA experts were on the writing committee for that. In fact, we're teaching today a multipoint DFMEA with 4th edition in SAE-J1739. All right, and we're teaching an FMEA in the 4th edition that automatically you can pull up if you use Omnex's software. You can pull it up in the AIAG-VDA FMEA. All right, so BMS, this is a software DFMEA. Remember, you can do the same we have been doing what is called algorithm DFMEAs for the longest time for General Motors in the Omnex's history. We did it at the Proving Grounds. And just showing on the right-hand side is the structure. You can click on the right-hand side and it pulls up so we click the battery pack. We're coming back to the battery pack. Now we're going into the FMEDA. By the way, they went and picked it from the menu. I cut it out for time. So actually, this is the fault tree, not the FMEDA. And you can see then the flow down of the malfunction that's in a safety goal all the way down, okay? We also did a semiconductor one for one of our customers. We added that semiconductor one that feeds into the circuit board, okay? And the big part of our software is what is called reuse built in, so that once you have created it, for the next version of it, now we're picking the FMEDA, and as soon as you select the safety goal, you will see that it's been populated all the way down to the single point fault and multi-point fault metric, okay? All right, and let's see, that's it. Now, I did want to very quickly show you also the same for the 4th edition. Let's see if I can quickly pull that up. There it is. Let me display, share my screen. So it's a very same, and I'm just going to jump right to I think somewhere. So the very same requirements, the same information is being pulled in, as you can see here. Let me just go back a little bit. So, well, same information is pulled into the 4th edition, okay? As you can imagine. So we are format agnostic because it's a database and you can pull the information. This has been one of our strengths even in the 80s and then early 90s, is that you can have multiple formats, including Honda format, we from the same database, okay? All right, that's what I wanted to share. Let's continue now. And I want to finish up. We have about 10 minutes. I want to finish up, and I'll to answer questions, I'll stay back. So let me give you about, a little bit more time if you have more questions you want to ask. And I see some questions here. I'll answer it a little bit later. And so what we have done, folks, I can't tell you the whole story behind it, but we realized that with the new standards, so the whole industry is going electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle, all right? As you go there, you have to adopt. You have to not only have IATF 16949, you need to have functional safety, cybersecurity, soon SOTF. As soon as you start going into level 3 cars, from level 2 cars, you have to be worried about scenarios, and SOTF comes into play, all right? Soon as all of these comes in, there's a whole design supply chain. And the design supply chain, so you see the structure, this is actually the battery management system. And you click on anywhere in the structure, it shows you the project plan or the timing plan, and you're able to pull up the functional safety plan, cybersecurity plan, SOTF plan, or the project plan. The requirements change. You get the project team. You get the configuration plan. So, of course, the requirements are everything is all linked. So you're seeing linked requirements. And the idea is, as you all know, when you look at your structure, your semiconductor supplier, well, you may not be directly dealing with them, but they're all part of your supply chain, and you can allow them to come into the same platform so the information is there. Our goal was to be, a scorecard of course, we had this suite for a while, 100% for IATF. A-Spice, we're at 90%. We're not planning to do the other 10% purposely, and 95% for safety. And we're at 68% today for cybersecurity, ISO 21434. Within the next few months, I think the plan is around 95% also for cybersecurity. All right. So it's a quick look at how the tool is. You click here, and you can just work with the project plan. Of course, there's many. It's a very complete tool. You have the requirements. You have the organizational chart. You know who's on the project team, and you can customize it to your own widgets. Okay. So here, this is my calendar. Let's see here. Let's move on here. So this is our goal. It is right now under beta testing. See if you want to be a beta tester for us, and if you're interested in becoming part of the solution for us. So just a quick question. Contact me for more information on the software, yes or no. We're interested, working with, some of you, in terms of taking this product. I want it to be able to be user-friendly. So we're getting very small EV or EV/AV organization. In fact, I'm going to be doing a gap analysis for a 12-person company that's innovating on using an AI tool inside the car. At the same time, we're also working with a company with 40 people now. By the end of the year, there'll be 100. There'll be 200 by the end of the year. They have no systems in place. And how do you get everything in place ASAP? Well, the software can do it for you, okay? Miles, I hope you have finished. It's an easy question. Let's close the questions so I can take them. Okay. Thank you very much. About a 50-50. That's good enough for us. And let's go on and finish this webinar, and then I'll take the questions that you have. The system, hardware, and software FMEAs currently do not have functions requirements that are linking or a failure flow down the structure of the product, okay? It's AIAG-VDA in the function analysis just talks about it between a higher level and the focus level and the lower level, so 3. And we say just do it for all of them, all right? This link structure allows the FEMA, FTA, and FMEDA to be linked and related to each other. Completing the FMEA completes half the FTA or the FMEDA. You don't have to do both tools, just one of those tools, FEMA, or FMEDA, or the FTA. As I told you, what brought us to this page is that little to no relationship between DFMEAs, FTAs, FMEDAs. And why do all this extra work and then have it all look differently? The flow down from the safety goal to the hardware and software components with dashboards will reduce redundancy and optimize safety mechanism placement, improving the overall cost and controls in a product. Worse yet was people doing FMEDAs and FTAs without thinking it through in the DFMEA. What a shame. Think it through in the DFMEA and then populate everything else, right? Somebody's told me, hey, I'm losing my inductive and deductive reasoning. No, you don't. It's just linked. When you do the FTA, and it automatically will force you to the different types of reasoning it requires. It doesn't say you stop thinking. It says the tool that provides you the linkage, you still have to do the deductive reasoning and the inductive reasoning for the one tool versus the other. So the linkage between the DFMEA and the DVPNR, I did not talk about this. I didn't feel I had time and I didn't want to bring in so many thoughts here, very important for Omnex is this link between DFMEA and the test plan, DVPNR. If you do that, you actually will get the V model. If you're interested in that, I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Of course, having a web-based or cloud-based solution integrating functional safety, ASPICE, and IATF will significantly help in this design supply chain. Okay, so with that, I'll go on to the questions. This is the 7 levers, and we have a website called EVAV, that's Electric Vehicle Autonomous Vehicle.omnex.com. All right, go to omnex.com, and it'll get you there. If you pick, the electric and autonomous vehicle segment, it'll take you there. Okay, and this strategy we laid out a couple of years ago, saying all these have to be integrated and implemented together. Here are the services we do, from gap analysis all the way to product certification, assessments, and audits. We also we help in design services for tier 1s, all right? If you're looking for somebody and you don't have the expertise in a supplier, which we have found it's not there, to do some functional safety design or cybersecurity design, we're there for you. All right. Plus, we can help your design team set your systems in place. Lots of different classes. I just want to go through it quickly. Look at omnex.com and pick the electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle markets. This is cybersecurity. This is something called TISAX for ISO 27001. Functional safety. Lots of functional safety courses from Omnex. Automotive SPICE. AIAG-VDA. All right, I'll stop there. With that, folks, I'm going to take the questions that you have. Why don't I give you some time to ask more questions? So let's see here. What you showed us today is that the software tool that Omnex is recommending. It is actually one of our software tools. As I mentioned to you, it's currently just in the beta stage. It'll be released to a few companies in a beta stage before we launch it publicly. Does the DFMEA tool allow and or gate? Yes, absolutely. Oh, not in the DFMEA. How that happens is automatically when it's now I don't want to screw up. Let's see here. If it's a single point fault, it is a OR. If it's a multi-point fault, it's an AND, okay? So automatically you know it's an AND or, and so we can automate that. Of course, if so that's pretty straightforward, okay? Putting safety mechanisms, latent fault, and diagnostic coverage is pretty cumbersome. So we cannot automatically give you everything. What we can do is safety mechanisms and preventive techniques. You put that in the DFMEA, it automatically populates the FMEDA. And the latent faults automatically is populated in the FMEDA. Diagnostic coverage you're going to have to put in. Because unless we opened up a column called diagnostic coverage, which we can in the DFMEA, and you can put that in the DFMEA. All that's saying is how much of the failure is the safety mechanism going to catch, okay? So we can just open it up right in there. This is very nice about our software. You can, with a right click, you can add as many columns as you want. If it's a column between these tools, you can just open up that column and actually put it right in, okay? What about cybersecurity certification? Yes, we are, in fact, our expert is doing a cybersecurity certification class. We have a 5-day, it's ISO 21434 training and certification, a level 1 training course. The standard is right now out in the DIS. We expect by the end of the year, the standard is released. Okay. Folks, it looks like we have out of time, and With that, if you have other questions, please do email us, email me. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and I hope you learned a lot, and thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.